committee member. And our other spot, as President Keller just announced, is currently open. We have minutes from October 24th. Did you take a look at those?
I did, yes.
Well, I know you weren't on the committee
I
with
wasn't.
that, but I looked them over as well, and they looked good to me, so we will make a motion that we approve those. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And they are approved as submitted. Thank you. Under old business, the first thing we wanted to just mention was, at our last meeting, we discussed getting Christmas cards and sending to the volunteers on all the boards and commissions, and we did do that. We took that to council, and the motion was approved to allocate a little bit of money to that, and I think it was very much appreciated, so wanted to just report in that that did happen. Under new business tonight, we have one ordinance. Melissa, will you read the title of the ordinance for us, please?
An ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to apply for Transportation Alternatives Program funding to be used for the construction of a multi-use path for pedestrians and bicyclists to access Barthelmess Park, to enter into a contract with the Director of the Ohio Department of Transportation if the application for funding is approved, in declaring an emergency.
Thank you, and we do have Service Director Jim Stanley here to talk about the project.
Yeah, this is a multi-use path, shared use path, however you want to apply an acronym to it, for a pathway that would start basically at the Picca driveway, which is shown
Let's see,
right there in that top drawing.
that's the beginning of it. We've got it on the video board for people in the audience.
And that is a 10-foot shared use path that would lead out to Barthelmess Park and use an existing paved pathway that we have at Barthelmess Park. It would allow bike traffic and pedestrian traffic to safely make its way out to Barthelmess Park. And hopefully this would be the beginning of some new bike paths throughout the city that would tie park systems together and maybe neighborhoods and that kind of thing. So they'd also, this project wouldn't have the share rows in them or the shared paths that are on the roadways, but it does show some markings that are proposed areas for what they call share rows, which is bike lane on a roadway, basically.
I see, because this would not be on the road. This would be where
This is
sidewalk currently is
Right.
on.
Well, yeah, where sidewalk would normally be.
Yes.
There isn't any for most of this pathway. And this is just to allow me to apply for the grant money, and it is a 95% grant with a 5% city match. So currently, we're estimating at about $1 million worth of work. So it would be a $50,000 project for the city to get this taken care of, so.
Yeah, I see. So just for everyone's information, I put up the sidewalk on the far side of the road. I guess it would be this north side of Ohio Street, ends right here at Rennick Avenue. So you're proposing that there be a crosswalk to come across to the General Electric side, the Picca side.
Right.
So people could join the path and it would go along. Now, would the existing sidewalk at that location where the sidewalk is, would that be removed then?
If it's where the pathway is going to be, the pathway would, yeah, take place of the sidewalk to get the wider multi-use path in its place. But there isn't a lot of sidewalk that exists, and it's not in fantastic condition.
Right.
Anyhow, so it would, it'd be well-served to have a new pathway put there. And also with this project would have those, well, you've seen them in Lancaster, the bright flashing lights, what we have out on 188, which currently aren't working. We have to replace those ones. And at the school, we have some of the lights that you press the pedestrian button and they get your attention.
For the pedestrian crosswalk,
Right.
so that there would be, there's not going to be a traffic light there, but there would be
Right.
some signal for cars that are
To
coming.
indicate somebody's going to be in
Somebody's
the
going to be there.
walkway.
Hopefully, people would be watching for cars also, but you can't always count on that.
No, you're
So the-
supposed to.
Yeah, it looks like the path will go down along then in front of the GE plant where there's a fence there now. Will that fence remain, and will the,
I believe the fence would remain. If it says, I can't read that real.
it looks like the path goes right up to kind of where the fence is.
So the fence should not be on the right of way, so it should be okay.
Okay, so there should be a couple feet there between the
Yes.
the 10-foot path and the fence. Okay, good. and then I'll just keep clicking through. It goes on down past Ray Avenue and Brown Street and Fay, and curves around in front of the field. There's a farmer's field there, and gets to the Catholic Church building, goes across in front there, and then it's going to go around the corner. Let's see. So this area is coming from the Catholic Church building. It kind of flips around the corner there where Kingston Pike is, and then there will be another pedestrian crossing here before it gets across the road, and then people can access the park through that back
That's correct.
path that's sort of behind the housing development there. Okay. Is there any plan in the future, I guess, because as I was looking at this on the map, the sidewalk goes across in front of the housing development, but then it ends at Barthelmess Park, like where Barthelmess is along Kingston Pike. Is there any talk of taking the sidewalk all the way along Kingston Pike so people would not have to walk into the back end of the park?
There isn't currently, but there needs to be discussions about tying sidewalks in, and there are programs that allow for those type of studies to be done. So that's something that we will be looking into, and part of the Safe Streets for All grant money will probably look at some of that with that as well. But yeah, this area in particular doesn't have any sidewalk access
Right.
for pedestrian or bicycle traffic. So, and it's, obviously Kingston Pike is a pretty well-traveled roadway and a
Yes.
heavily used roadway, so.
Yes, and since the stoplight at Ohio Street was removed, the cars are coming through there pretty quickly. Zach, did you have any questions or comments on this?
There are a couple of fire hydrants along the farmland there. Are we planning on going around those or just kind of making the path a wider area? I know they're I drove by there just the other day.
Yeah, did it indicate the locations on that plan?
This is farmland, I
It's
think.
right around the church, on Ohio Street.
Yeah, if there is a hydrant that is in the way, it's cheaper to move on a hydrant than it is to acquire right-of-way. Now, I'm not
Is it?
saying we don't need to acquire any right-of-way here for this, but that'll depend on what the final plan looks like. This is based on LiDAR that the state has for using topographic information so they could lay it out. But they will have to do a more detailed topographic survey of that area before we get into final design, and then we'll see where those hydrants end up.
And then, what kind of path are we looking at? Are we looking at like a sidewalk kind of path or an asphalt?
It'd likely be an asphalt at
Okay.
10 foot wide, since that, your paving width, that's a good paving width, which makes it a little less expensive as an asphalt path than as a concrete path.
Okay.
And I was looking at the old comprehensive plan where they talked about bike paths, and I think that's what they recommend for two-way traffic. So each side would technically have 5 feet, so a bicycle could pass each other.
Right, and at a minimum, you want 8 foot, but 10 foot's
Better.
more what the,
Sure.
yeah.
We also could have pedestrians on the path, and so we
Yes.
want room for bicycles to pass them.
Right,
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay, very good. Well, I have another question for you, Jim, but let's go ahead. Do you have any other questions on the ordinance?
Not on the ordinance, though.
All right. Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to pass this on to council at the January 16th meeting, and recommend passage.
Okay, I will second that motion.
Brooks,
Yes.
Tice.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Jim, while we're talking about bike paths, I know you and I have had a conversation, I've had a conversation with the mayor about bike paths on the street in the past. And we do have some streets that are a little bit wider. What we're looking at here, this is a map of the city, and this bike path is going down along Ohio Street and around the corner. We had discussed looking at Mound Street, see if the width of that would be possible for an actually on-the-road bike path, which would be just putting stripes in.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what we'd be looking at on Ohio Street as well, moving in a westerly direction. So, yeah, but Circleville has blessed or cursed, depending on if you have to pave them or not.
Yes.
With some pretty wide streets that are just two-lane streets, basically. So you could have parking, you could have a share road, and then you could have traffic without any real issues. And so there are quite a few streets you could look at that would take a bike path.
Yes, well, and I guess I would like to ask you to have somebody in your department take a look at that and, maybe get back to us at some point. No rush, but as you have time. But we have Mound Street and we have Pickaway Street as a north-south, route for bikes. And I live on Pickaway Street, and one thing I'm very concerned with is the amount of motorized wheelchairs that go up and down the street in traffic. Can you see that as
Yeah.
well? And it scares me to death. So that might be something that if people were going to insist on being in the street, at least if they were in a bike lane, they would be hopefully a little bit safer from the traffic, the cars. If the cars are getting in the habit of staying towards the center of the street and out of bike lanes, I don't know, but that happens.
I'd say especially as you get closer to the hospital and that little area where there is no sidewalk on the right side of the road as you're going
Yeah,
north.
east,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, and really sidewalks are where they should be. They shouldn't be in the roadway, so that's areas
Yes.
where sidewalks need to be.
Right.
And you've put all those
Located.
ramps in at the
Yeah.
corners,
Yeah,
I know that's there, but for some reason, I bet there's half a dozen different people I have seen in their wheelchairs going up and down the street. And I think accessing the downtown, is what they want to do. So if I don't know, just like to consider that.
Yeah, and that's something too, maybe getting, I had a meeting with, was it PRDD or with the folks out at the, used to be Brooks Yates. It may still be Brooks Yates, but it's, and they would like to have some input with city council on those type of issues, some accessibility issues with sidewalks and pathways, so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That might be something that, with the strategic planning committee, maybe they might want to come up here and talk to you folks.
Sure. We'd be happy to hear from them and see what those needs are. Excellent. Do you have any other thoughts?
I don't think so.
Okay, do we have any other new business? Okay, and that's all I had, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. We are adjourned at 7:43. Thank you all for coming.